Okay, friends, is it just me or does it seem like the Democrats they're kicking up the offense a little bit? Okay, for the girlies who haven't heard, this morning, the president announced his plan to reform the Supreme Court and ensure that no president is above the law. People on both sides of the aisle have been calling for Supreme Court reform for a real long time, but for a sitting president to announce not only his intentions but plans to reform it, that's a big deal. And in case you also might have missed it, the Supreme Court has been wilding lately. And the reason that they have been wilding is largely due to a supermajority of the judges, meaning there are more conservative judges than there are liberal judges. So all of the rollbacks that you're seeing are coming as a result of there being a liberal minority. Conservative majority is overriding the liberal minority. How does the supermajority even happen? Well, Trump was able to usher in 3 ideologically aligned judges real quick. Back when Obama was in office, Republican-controlled Senate blocked Obama's Supreme Court nomination. So this was back in 2016. And the way that they blocked it is they just refused to hold hearings or vote on his nomination, which this was unprecedented, meaning that it had never happened before. So they blocked it for it was something like 270 days that they were blocking this. And the justification that they used was because it was an election year, the next president should be able to pick the Supreme Court judge. Again, had never happened before, and we're like 270 days before the end of the year. So this entire time, the seat was just vacant, and it effectively blocked his appointment. They were like saving the space for a Trump presidency. But here's the trip part. Republicans basically backtracked on their own justification for blocking Obama's nomination, because in 2020, when one of the more liberal Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, died, they did a rush job. They pushed Amy Coney Barrett in like 25 days, literal weeks before the next election, which is crazy. A lot of Democrats were mad at Ruth Bader Ginsburg because they felt like if she had chosen to step down, then maybe they wouldn't be in this situation. They could have chose someone, younger, more liberal to put in the Supreme Court, where now they have a conservative stacked Supreme Court and they're wilding out. But on the other hand, we probably also wouldn't be at the point where we have a sitting president announcing plans to reform the Supreme Court. So maybe we're exactly where we're supposed to be if this actually plays out. Okay, so the president's plan has 3 parts. The first part is no immunity for crimes that a former president committed while in office. He's calling for an amendment to the Constitution that makes it clear that no president is above the law or immune to prosecution for any crimes that were committed while they were in office. It'll be called the No One is Above the Law Amendment, which states that the Constitution does not provide any immunity from federal crime indictment, from trial, from conviction, or sentencing because of the virtue of previously serving as a president. The second part of the plan is term limits. So I don't know if y'all know this, but the United States is pretty much the only major democracy, constitutional democracy, I should say that's important, that has lifetime seats in the high courts. In his proposed system, the president will appoint a new justice every 2 years, and that justice would spend 18 years in active service of the Supreme Court, which honestly to me makes sense, because if you think about how much a society changes in just 18 years, so the benefits of term limits really truly cannot be understated. But I think most importantly, it reduces the chance that a single presidency has the ability to influence so heavily future generations to come. Like a single presidency. I'm talking to you, Reagan. Like, nah. The third part is a binding code of conduct. The president wants Congress to pass binding and enforceable conducts and ethics rules. Rules would state things like justices have to disclose gifts, stay away from public political activity. They would have to recuse themselves, meaning they sit themselves out from cases in which they or their spouses have financial or other conflicts of interest. This would be just like every other federal judge. So AOC recently brought up articles of impeachment against 2 Supreme Court justices for doing exactly that, not recusing themselves and not disclosing gifts or accepting gifts. And a lot of people are calling it like a fool's errand, but one thing I think is super important to call out is that it sets precedent. It says that not only is this behavior not acceptable for a judge, but the acknowledgement that the Supreme Court is held accountable by the House of Representatives, by Congress. But we're focusing on the local level, right? So what does that mean for us? Supreme Court reform is something that you feel is important. It's important that your local representatives hear and feel that. Communicate it, talk about it, flood their inbox. Keep that same energy that you have for celebrities for your elected officials. Make sure they know that you're paying attention. Find your local representative, your district reps, your state reps. There's a lot of seats in the House that are going to be up for election this year. So find out how those candidates have been talking about Supreme Court reform. DM them, ask them what their thoughts are on Supreme Court reform. Email them. Check on your current House elected officials. Check on your Senate elected officials. See how they're talking about Supreme Court reform. See if it's something that they're for or if they're against it. And if they're against it and you don't like that, maybe take their job. Maybe take their job. Honestly, I don't know too many Americans who would oppose these calls for reform. I do know that a lot of people are like, why now? But also like, why not now? And then like, if not now, like when? But either way, I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts. Is this something that you're down for? Is this something that you're against? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Democrats playing offense too? Hit me with the deets.